March 8 regular board session.
All right, welcome everybody to this regular meeting of the Marion County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Randia, roll call please.
Keisha Johnner.
Here.
Mark Ramey.
Here.
Steve McCombs.
Here.
Would entertain a motion on this morning's agenda.
Make motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Jake, any communications?
No, sir.
Board?
I had some, but we'll address it in a later item.
Yeah, same with me, so very good. We will move on. Public comments. This is the portion of our agenda the public can speak on items not listed on this morning's agenda. The board cannot act on those items, but they could be topics for future Board of Supervisor meetings. Are there any public comments on items not listed on this morning's agenda? In the room, seeing none. Anything online? Very good. We will move on. Would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Make motion to approve approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
All right, very good. On to business. First item, we have RISE grant application. Tyler, I think might as well just stay up there. I think most of this meeting is for you anyway. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, they get me my own table and
You could have this one, Tyler.
Jake's willing to share.
so
Well, I was told, by the way, I have to put a timer on you.
Oh.
But I'm going to be gracious and say no. Tyler,
Thank
the
you.
floor is yours.
well, thanks for letting us do some county business today. So this agenda item is for discussion regarding a potential RISE grant application on behalf of the county. So to clarify initially here, a county or a city has to be the applicant for a RISE grant regardless of where the project lies.
Right.
Okay. We have been involved with a few RISE grants. Most recently, you may recall Weiler Drive. The city of Knoxville and DOT did a project at Weiler Drive. We added turn lanes and some intersection improvements there. We really were not driving that project. The city of Knoxville was the applicant, and there was no county match because it's a secondary to primary road intersection. We were able to apply for an additional funding source through the DOT to provide the match to the RISE grant, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So no out-of-pocket costs from the county were incurred on that project. The project at hand is actually for LDJ Manufacturing. We do have Warren Van Wyk here today with us. And the project would be for safety improvements on Highway 163, which is a primary highway, to the manufacturing facility at LDJ, which is a privately owned company, and this is a private drive. So the main point here is that it's a primary road to a private entrance, not a primary road to secondary road intersection. So the challenge that I have from a secondary road perspective is Iowa code states the secondary road funds cannot be expended outside of the secondary road right of way. So we would not be able to provide any matching dollars for this project, but the county itself could provide match funds through a variety of ways for the project. So, and I can let Lauren talk about what is happening at LDJ and what the safety improvements would be, but just to give you a little more background on the project and what it would mean for the county being the applicant. So again, the county must be the applicant. For economic development and safety are the justifications for the county being the applicant if it is not on a secondary road, which would both apply here for economic development and for safety. The county must let the project for bids, even if we have a consultant do the applicant, do the design, administer construction. The county must let either through our own sources or through the Iowa DOT. We must let the project for bid. County must cash flow the project. The RISE grant would be reimbursable up to 80%. So the county would have to cash flow the full amount of the project initially and then be reimbursed for a maximum of 80% from RISE. The match could also come from other sources potentially, but there's no guarantee that it's 20% until we get further into the process. The county may have a development agreement or some other type of agreement for the unmatched portion, so that's one other option. So for that 20%, or let's say it's 30% match, there may be a development agreement to pay for those costs instead of the county. And the county, in this instance, I would suggest the county have an agreement with Iowa DOT District 5 for maintenance. The RISE grant, the code of Iowa, the section that applies to RISE grants, states that the applicant must maintain any improvement from RISE grants for a minimum of 20 years. In this instance, it would be on a primary road, and the grant administrator stated that in the past they would have some type of maintenance agreement with the DOT district in charge of maintenance and the county, so we would not have to maintain infrastructure on a primary road. There are clawback provisions if the facility does not meet the employment requirements. So if the application is made, so the grant, the 80% is based on the number of employees and the type of employees. So the grant administrators will assign a dollar value to the number of employees being added, up to $12,000 per employee, up to 80% of the project cost. And then there's a 6 month and a 3 month, or 6 month and a 3 year review of payrolls, and a payroll has to be part of the application initially. And if LDJ does not meet those, or whoever is part of the application does not meet those, there are clawback provisions that are prorated. I do not exactly know the details of that. If that, let's say 50% of the employment is met, would it be 50% of the RISE grant share is asked to be reimbursed back into the program? I do not know that exactly yet. I tried to ask that question, but haven't got back with us. So from the last couple things here, the county would have to do a formal resolution as part of the application. There are funding options. ARPA is maybe a potential, lost, the county general fund, but regardless, it would need a resolution, formal obligation from the board prior to submitting the application.
Okay, do we have a current estimate, Tyler?
So yes, yeah, I did not send that with. So currently, there's a recent project on 163 for turn lanes and paving of the median crossover. That was in the $130,000 range. With inflation, I estimate that to be around 180. The traffic impact study that LDJ completed with Gardner Associates also recommends a right turn lane. That was not included down the road. So I looked at the current RISE application being submitted by the city of Pleasantville on Highway 5 and got some more recent estimates from them, and I came up with about $275,000. So with contingency, you're looking at around $300,000. That does include about $50,000 for engineering of the project. That was an estimate I had Gardner Associates provide, just an off-the-cuff estimate, kind of ballpark for this. So that's a little higher than we had previously discussed with Lauren, I think. But gathering recent estimates from, I think Snyder and Associates is doing the project for the city of Pleasantville. I used their costs and then compared those to what had happened down the road here on 163. So 300,000, 60,000 would be the minimum match of 20% for the county. The county could incur no out-of-pocket if there was some type of development agreement or other funding used for the match portion. That is a possibility, but so maybe at this time Lauren can describe what the project is exactly. and what that would mean for the county.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Van Wyk. I'm one of the owners. Chad Van Wyk here is another one of the owners of LDJ. For the last 10 years, we have been working to try to do something with the median in between the two highways. Right now it's gravel. It poses a real challenge for dust. Holes get created all the time because tires spin to get into traffic. So about 10 years ago, we were at 70 employees. We've now grown to over 100. In fact, since the study was done, we've actually added another 6 employees. We're up to about 111. And we've got 15 requests out there looking for more employees. And about 70% of those employees are office employees, engineers, ERP manager, lots of upper end jobs. So we're growing. So the opportunity arose here for us. We're adding a new product line. That is, we build fuel trailers that do multiple things, from lubricants to lots of different things. We're putting those bodies on small truck bodies now, on small dualies. So to meet the RISE grant, you've got to have a new product line, and you've got to be in a growth mode where you're going to be adding employees. So it creates a good opportunity for us to do this before we get started on this project. Now, the catcher is you can't put a building up till you have this project approved, but we can start dirt work and some things. We have approved to go ahead with a $2.5 million addition to the facility, which will be a 100 by 250 addition. So that qualifies us there. The new product line is the trucks, so that qualifies us there. And we will have no challenge to meet the requirements that they require for the added employees. So we thought it was the right time to try and get this in. The reason we're interested is the safety of our employees is probably our #1 reason. Getting 110 people on and off the property in the morning and in the evening is very challenging. Traffic runs 70 miles an hour. You just well figure that 65 is the speed limit. People run 70, that's fast. We do have very good vision where we're at. We can see both ways very well, but still, people will line up to get out of our facility, and it's a one has to shoot across. A fair amount of our traffic comes from the east, so they all have to cross over to leave. In the morning in the dark, they come and have to pull in and slow down. We've incurred a lot of very close calls, had 3 or 4 accidents, but thankfully no one's ever been killed yet. But we don't want to wait till that happens. We want to try to be proactive. Our growth plans are to double the size of our facility in the next 10 years. We don't see that that's any challenge. Our market share is about 70% on the product that we sell. We're very popular in the market, so we're excited to keep growing. And yeah, our product covers ag and the construction market, so it gives us a very wide market to work in with a lot of potential yet. So any questions that I can answer? That just gives you a brief summary of what we're trying to do. I will say if there was any way we could do this on our own, we would, but there's no way that we can apply for the RISE grant without the assistance of the county. And so we do pay a fair amount of real estate taxes, of course, and we know very well that that'll go up with the addition. And we have no squabbles with that, but we are one of the only manufacturers that's in the county and not in a city jurisdiction.
Right.
Coming from an ag background, we're kind of proud of that, actually. So the farm turned into a manufacturing facility, and we're real thankful. So I'll take any questions if I can answer.
You guys have it, Steve, Keisha?
Until you provide the information for the RISE grant as far as the number of jobs and the quality, I think that was one of the definitions in the RISE grant.
Yes, it is.
we really don't know what numbers we're gonna be working with as far as the dollar amount, am I correct? Or as far as
We
what?
had a meeting, Tuesday, Tyler, myself, and, my finance guy. And we met with, I believe it was Jennifer from the RISE grant out of.
And I was on
North.
that call
And,
also, yeah.
Yeah, Keisha was on that call too, thank you. And so, we have already sent in paperwork. She asked us to do more specific updates on salaries and things like that. So that's not a problem. My finance guy's getting that all in. We should have that in hopefully
We
this
don't have
week.
that to them yet though, correct?
We have submitted it once. She asked for more deeper detail.
Right,
So
right.
we said we'd go back, get exactly what she needed and get back to her. So we didn't feel we had any problem with it. She just wanted a lot more detail, than we originally, realized. So I don't see any problem with us getting that to her. And from talking with her, she didn't see that we'd have any problem qualifying for the 80% way.
And that's kind of the notion I got, the qualification at least for the grant. Now, what percentage, I mean, she didn't state obviously because she can't, but she was very supportive of the project.
I think if we had those formal numbers, updated numbers from you, we could revisit that with her prior to submittal of the application to know exactly what the commitment might be from the county.
I
if
would
that's what
feel
you're
more,
asking.
I would feel more
Because
comfortable
we
with
do
it.
not know how many jobs would be eligible to apply to the 80% and at what rate. That rate could be up to 12,000 per employee.
Right.
For that match, or for the RISE grant, but we don't know that yet. And maybe she would entertain kind of giving her best guess prior to submittal the application. Then everybody kind of knows what the commitment would be prior to the application.
And we had submitted the first time that we'd be adding 30+ employees over the next 3 years, which was a very low-key estimate for us.
Is that the timeline that they're concerned about? Is that the 3-year period that you have to create those jobs in order to stay eligible for that RISE grant? Or what's the time frame?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but she basically made it sound like it was a 4-year period. Assuming the grant got approved, it took about a year for construction. Once construction was complete, they would then do the start the timeline for the 6-month review and then the 3-year review. So it would really be about 4 years from the point of application.
Yeah.
So if the jobs are not created in that time frame, who's on the hook for the? I'm sure that
You are.
they're gonna want their money back.
Yeah, they're going to want their money back, and that's where, when we spoke about possibly doing an agreement, whether that be, with Lauren or,
Yeah, and that is stated right in like the FAQs on the RISE grant website that development agreements are typical. What that would look like, I do not know. I have not seen a development agreement for this type of instance of what that would be, but it would be most likely be between Lauren and the Board of Supervisors or
yes.
the company.
Yeah.
Right.
So similar to the DMAC grants for buildings, Carla, you've probably seen those where you're gonna get some type of workforce development grant. You build a building of a certain size, you have to have a certain number of employees. If you don't meet those requirements, there's clawbacks and reimbursements, and it's very similar from a structural standpoint. There's probably copies we can get, Carla, that can give you a format, Tyler, on how that would look if you don't meet those requirements or something happens economically to change that. But overall, Warren, for just what you're attempting to do and the growth, congratulations, number one, on your company and what you're doing and growing. I think that's fantastic. I don't have a problem, Tyler, at the current split. When you're talking about we're on 60,000 roughly at 300,000 estimate. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
And that's if
the
everything.
Employment numbers get to the 80%. Yeah.
Pretty confident about that in terms of the types of employees that you'll meet all those requirements going forward.
I'm very confident about it. It is a huge challenge to find the employees.
No, that's
But,
different issue, yeah.
you know, we understand the marketing of it, and the advantage we have being a smaller company. We can provide a great culture. We can do a lot of things. There's always a certain amount of people that love a small company versus a large one, for different reasons, and we have a great advantage to do that. We are almost completely sold out through this year. And that's a real blessing. And that is with doubling production last year. Chad literally doubled the output of the factory. So, which again leads to why we need the addition.
Sure.
We're pretty tight. But we feel very confident that, you know, we're gonna make this probably in this first year. That's why we feel it's so important that we get it started. We actually built a building last year, but they do not let you go backwards at all. You've got to get this in ahead of the build, before they see you do a building, or you lose out.
Yeah.
And so, and then just to give you some insight, the 100 by 250 building is gonna go across the north end of the facility sideways, east and west. And then it's gonna allow us to bring another 500-foot building back to the south again and create a horseshoe. So this is just the start. We're not planning to just do this and that's it.
Right.
This is just gonna be our connector point to get another 500-foot of building someday down the road, which is in our 10 to 20-year plans. So.
Sure. So for me, the safety alone of getting that number of people on and off the highway is probably, you're right, is paramount concern. Jason, you're online, aren't you?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I mean, you probably have got at least some background on this from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, we've had close calls, like Lauren said, up there at different times. Whenever you have that many cars coming on and off, it's definitely a safety concern. I mean, I can't really tell you that yet we've had any real major accidents right at that exact spot. But like Lauren said, it's just the potential. I mean, it's something that anytime you have cars slowing down or trying to get across there, it's an issue.
Okay.
If I could add, little personal experience, but 2005, I was actually T-boned right there at the intersection and totaled my vehicle, trying to cross the highway, but, representing my staff that works for me, I probably get 2 to 3 questions a week about it. Because of close calls in the morning. Excuse me. We're one of the only straight stretches between Pella and Des Moines area. So what we tend to find is people are pulling up their cell phones or reading books, and they don't even see the traffic turning, which is the risk. And then we're taking about 15 to 20 semis in and out of our property a day. So when they're coming from Des Moines, which most our semi traffic does, the back of their semis is actually still hanging out on the highway a lot of times. And if you drive by our property, you'll see where actually the ditch has been caved and kind of shoved in where the semi traffic is trying to pull off so that there's time for them to cross the oncoming lanes. So
Yeah. No, I've seen it. Yeah.
yeah, we haven't had many accidents. We've been very fortunate from that side, but there's a lot of horn honks and screeching brakes and some of that stuff that we do experience. So, but I count that as a blessing instead of the other side. So,
right, and I am supportive of this in the aspect of as we see Pella grow and the more the traffic that's going to be coming, but I would prefer to see this than maybe around Pleasantville, how you have it go down from 65 to 55. I mean, I'd prefer to see a turning lane come in and being able to get your employees off and on safely, and that would be very beneficial and allow the traffic to continually to flow and allow growth into our our county that way. So
Tyler, what do you need from us right now? I mean, it sounds like you've got some work to do on the application.
yeah, so I didn't state that, or I apologize. What I'm looking for today is actually kind of a handoff. we need information to complete the application, and I'm willing to do that. I told Keisha, there's really not a whole lot on my end to complete as part of the application, but I can compile that information, complete the application, and follow up on the employees versus the potential rise amount with you. And also, so I guess I'm looking for the board to support the project so we can proceed with the application, and at the same time start to secure a formal contract with Garden and Associates to actually design the project,
Okay,
which was included in that price.
so it's included in the 300.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do believe
And there's a
that,
small timeline, in my understanding, like there's a finalized date of this week, which we're not going to meet that. Tyler, do you foresee that if we could get this done for April so that they could review it in May? Because we also know that he's looking at trying to continue to, further his development and not waiting clear into next year.
right, correct me if I'm wrong, but that we would have to have the application in by Thursday or Friday of this week. to
Yeah,
do
and
the
I don't
next
see that
month's
happening,
commission
but-
meeting. That will probably not
Right.
happen. So we would be looking at a month from now to submit the application. So in the meantime, if Lauren or Chad could give me the information in the application, we could follow up with Jennifer and you at the next meeting with more formal numbers for the project.
Yeah.
Then we could proceed with the application. The project does not have to be designed, is my understanding, at the
No.
time of application. But we want to get that rolling for his timeline.
Yes.
So Tyler, I think what I'm hearing is, unless I hear something different from these two, the general sense of the board is we're supportive of the project. To go forward and put together the information that you need to then present to us in a formal way so that we can get numbers, dollars. I don't think we just can generically approve a dollar, range of 10,000 to 50,000. We just kind of need to know what our commitment will be,
Right.
Yep.
what the clawback's going to look like, what the relationship between the county and the company will be. So those are the points we'll want to be able to put together in some more formalized manner, and then the board can act on that. Does that sound fair?
Yes, so could I ask that, since Keisha's been involved, maybe she could work with me on some of
That's
that,
fine, yeah.
from the board's perspective, since she probably,
Steve?
Yes, I'm supportive of the project. I also wanted to make sure you get the DOTs to sign off on the maintenance part of it.
Yeah.
Cause
Yeah.
we don't want the county crew if they're working on a 4-lane road.
Right.
yeah,
And we'd expressed that in the meeting too. I felt
And
like
if your
that was.
numbers are close from what you presented today, then I can start talking to Jake when we think about where the funding would come from. I don't see that being a hangup. We'll talk through that.
I'm very supportive of the growth. I mean, and I definitely understand the safety aspect, especially the turning lanes. I think you're probably still gonna have an issue trying to get it straight across there, but, but you're gonna have that no matter what.
Yeah, we're gonna have that no matter what, and even just getting concrete in the medium is a huge asset for people. Crossing over is what it is. We have a great safety committee. We talk about it almost every Monday morning, for people to look in their mirrors, drive with their eyes forward and glancing in their mirror, because the worst is getting.
Yeah, I can understand the concrete.
So I think that's why we've made it this far.
And Lauren,
but-
and you have done maintenance on that a lot in the last,
We do almost all the maintenance. I have to
If we wanna
push all
admit
this.
that out loud for liability reasons.
But I get what you're
We have
saying,
to-
that you have to, when you're, because of the amount of traffic that you've had,
Yeah,
for potholes
We
and
have to
stuff.
take care of a lot to be able to get our
This-
employees on and off. And we probably contact the DOT once a month throughout the year, just alone for their maintenance and bringing more rock to put on the road and some of that, so.
Are they responsive? The DOT?
Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 calls.
Okay.
Yeah,
Depending on.
they mean well, so it's just, you take like this last week, we had it all fixed up, pretty good last week. And then with the weather this week and the snow, right away you get potholes again, and that's where the danger comes, so.
Yeah.
Very good. So Tyler, I think general sense from us is go forward and put together what you need to create a more formalized proposal, and
So I will work on the application, contact Garden Associates, and work with Keisha on the agreement parts.
Yeah, just make sure we get it very clear on the relationship between the grant and then in the event of a clawback, what that relationship between us will be. Those two components are gonna be pretty critical. to it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, for your
Thanks,
time.
Lauren.
Appreciate it.
I can reach out and help him with the development agreement examples.
That'd be great, Carla. Thank you.
Thanks,
very
Carla.
much. Tyler, thank you. All right, with that, is there a motion to close discussion on this item?
Make motion to close discussion.
Second?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye. Very good, thank you. Next, we'll declare the public hearing open. This is a proposal vacating all or certain parts of some right-of-ways in Marion County, and I'm not gonna read the entire section. You can see it up there on the board. But Tyler, if you can give us an idea where it's at, what we're talking about.
Okay, so you may have received an email from me yesterday about this one. I recommend continuing on with the public hearing today. I guess it's your discretion how we handle the next agenda item. But how we got here, Mark, was we were contacted a couple of times by the adjacent property owner here, and then eventually the city of Hamilton. This road is a little bit unique, as the city of Hamilton, it's a dead-end road. Technically, the majority of the county segment, so the east-west segment of Virginia there, is classified as legal, not open. That is up for interpretation on what that actually means in Iowa code. I think we're level A in the north-south section there, correct, Brian? But it's unique in the fact that the city of Hamilton has this section coming off the highway. So if they were to vacate, which they have informed us is their intent, we would be landlocked as a county. We would have a liability out there that we could not maintain. Because we could not access it without getting a subsequent easement from property owners. So if they vacate, we would essentially be forced to vacate because we would then have a liability there.
Right. Okay.
Regardless, it is my recommendation to vacate this segment of the level A, so the north-south section, and the legal not open, the east-west section, because I think the intent there was for access to property owners. Brian has reached out to all adjacent property owners. Many of them have the same concerns about people going back there that really don't need to be back there. They have alternative access for the most part. In fact, all of them actually have road frontage from another direction to contiguous properties. This is an easier way to get to portions of their property, and they would most likely obtain easements from the property owners that would then absorb the right-of-way, or the right-of-way would be vacated too. But I think everyone was on board as far as adjacent property owners. They understood the easement process if they wanted to acquire easements from the adjacent property owners. And originally, we thought Hamilton was going to proceed with the vacation on a similar timeline. What was it, 2 months ago, Brian? They had kind of made that indication. Since then, they have had a retirement from their city attorney, and the new city attorney is essentially starting the process over. And we're probably another couple of months out on them formalizing their portion of the vacation. But again, it has been communicated to us that is their intent to vacate their portion of this road.
Okay. Very good.
And we have had some phone calls in opposition, and you may have as well. I will state the opposition we have received is not from anyone who is an adjacent property owner.
Okay.
So they are not directly adjacent, do not require access off of what is or was a county road here. Is that correct? Brian's been fielding the calls, so.
Okay. All right.
Do you have anything else to add, Brian? Oh, no.
So as this is the public hearing portion, are there any comments from the public on what Tyler has described? Nothing? And nothing here. So I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
McCombs,
aye?
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. Now we have resolution 2022-30, which is the resolution for potential board action on what Tyler has just described. Board, do you have any questions or discussion for Tyler? Anything you want to add, Tyler, to this?
That was part of the communications that I received, Mark, was, I don't think that, I'm in favor of the vacation, don't get me wrong. The communication that I received was, there were some concerns expressed that the easements were not in place before the official vacation took place. I think that's the only hangup that I've.
And that's a city of Hamilton issue.
Well, there was some private concerns.
Okay.
It would be both, Mark. It would be,
Okay.
the easements would be for the portion that was the city's or the county's both.
Okay.
In certain instances. The secondary roads vacating without easement is not uncommon. We've done that, understanding that we provide everything but signatures. Most, a lot of times, here's examples, here's attorneys that you can reach out to, but ultimately easements are between the two property owners.
Yeah.
We really don't have any involvement. We try to, provide as much information as we can there. As I stated in my email yesterday, due to the delay in Hamilton's portion of this, it's probably my recommendation. It is my recommendation that we wait, just to make sure nothing transpires over the next couple of months. Could we vacate this in the future without them? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a little awkward in the fact that the north-south section would then be half of a right-of-way that they would then have. And maybe it's a transfer of jurisdiction or something else if they choose not to proceed. But I think at this point, maybe we should wait and we can do this again.
Yeah,
Steve?
I agree with that. I mean, this will give the parties that are affected a chance to come to their easement agreements. I mean.
And they may not. They may not have easements secured prior to the next time we present this.
Well, at least
Gives them
at least it's been brought to their attention.
Okay. So Jake, from a process standpoint, we've had the public hearing on this. If we choose to table this item, we can bring it back without a public hearing.
That question was asked to council yesterday, and I'll let Tyler speak for that, because I think they had that conversation.
Yeah, I think the recommendation was to err on the side of caution and proceed with notification and public hearing
So do it all
at
at
a
once.
subsequent time.
Okay.
So
Which I have communicated to Brian, but it's a little more work on our end, but we have all the legals. It would just be a matter of sending that notice back out
Okay.
and placing it on the agenda again.
Yeah, so from the standpoint of today, if you guys choose not to, you could take no action. You can do an official table. I don't know. From my understanding, I think Ed's on there as well. So those would be options. Or vote against it, I guess, and bring it back again later.
Well, I would probably recommend we just do a take no action on this, and then we can bring it back at a later date when you're ready, Tyler, or when.
Yeah, and I do not anticipate we will ever see anything formal from Hamilton.
Okay.
It's just we're gonna rely on them stating their intent.
Yeah. Well,
They've taken some unofficial action.
Yeah.
They kind of thought they vacated it once, and that wasn't a formal way to vacate. So
Sure. Well, I'm willing to follow your recommendation. I think that's fine. Steve, you got any issues?
No, I mean, we can certainly vacate ours in the future without whatever they do.
Keisha?
No, I'm just thinking of whether to table, or if we table, then we could bring it back to the table.
Well, it's not, yeah,
And,
either way is fine. It doesn't matter.
So, but
So, is there a motion on this item? And you can do a take no action or table, either one, the same general effect. It's just when you table something, then you have to untable it at the meeting.
I move we take no action on resolution 2022-30 at this time.
Good, I'll second that.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Tyler, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll wait for your recommendation going forward. We have a public hearing. We'll declare it open. Again, another vacation issue on certain road right-of-ways existing in Marion County. You can see the notice on the board for these properties specifically. Tyler, give us an idea what we're looking at.
So this is in the unincorporated town of Columbia. This would be an alley that was platted as part of the city. The owner believed the right of way or the alley to be vacated as part of a previous vacation as adjacent. Essentially, they own the block or most of the block, and there were a number of alleys there. They believed this one to be vacated as part of the previous two alleys being vacated, which we dug through the county records, and in fact, it was not. And so we would recommend this alley be vacated to be consistent with what the intent was, we believe the intent was originally, but also there's a building lying across the roadway.
All right, this is the public hearing portion. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Emily? Nothing? Not seeing anything in the room. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye, very good. Resolution 2022-31 is for board consideration of what Tyler just described. Are there any questions for Tyler?
I don't have any.
This seems pretty straightforward to
Yeah,
me.
I recommend approval of this vacation.
Is there a motion on this resolution?
I move we approve resolution 2022-31.
I'll second.
McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Next, we have resolution 2022-33, which is a resolution to approve disbursement of American Rescue Plan funds, more affectionately known as ARPA, for a fuel storage and management project. Tyler?
Yeah, so in some of the most interesting economic times ever, we are looking at an ARPA project to provide additional fuel storage and capacity at the LEC. So if you remember, I think it was back in November, December, I presented kind of the fuel logistics countywide on what that may or may not mean. And then a project was added to the ARPA project list for this. Since then, inflation has done its thing, and I have a higher estimate than what was on that list, about 75,000, I believe. So we're actually meeting tomorrow with the supplier of the tanks to discuss lead time and get formal updated pricing. So, okay, yes, you have the list there. So does that include the updated numbers? I did not provide this.
I did.
Yeah, I said that.
I believe so. So your project is the updated numbers.
So including the updated numbers that I provided in the resolution, which I believe to be conservative for both the LEC and our future secondary road tanks, which was as part of the original ARPA project request was for both, which would allow us to maintain equivalent capacities for road department, but then the additional capacity at the LEC, which would be for the sheriff's office and would have capacity for all other departments using gasoline.
Yeah.
And some contingency there as well. It would allow for pricing and all the things that we stated, and there's additional savings that come along with that. And could maybe get us through some short-term supply chain issues if that was ever to be the case.
Right. No, very good. So the 314 that's listed on here, Jake, updated for this meeting.
That was based off of Tyler's information.
Okay, very good. That would be the total of the request to initiate this project?
Total to initiate the project. In the short term, we're gonna be meeting tomorrow and discussing specifically the LEC fuel storage and fuel master software associated with the management of that for multiple departments. And then touching base with them regarding the secondary road facility and if we wanted, what is lead time, what's
Sure.
the future of the tank pricing, which they're not gonna be able to tell us what it is right now. But we'll have some discussions about the secondary road tank but primarily about if we get this approved, then we can proceed with the LEC and have some security there and potential savings in the near future.
No, excellent. I mean, it's something we have talked about as a board. We certainly dealt with this during COVID. We dealt with this now with the current situation on fuel and trying to be as responsible as we can with taxpayer money looking forward on how we both have enough capacity to cover for the volatility that's currently in the market and try to lock in contracts that are beneficial to Marion County for that fuel and saving money for the taxpayer, if you can call $130 barrel oil a savings. But we're doing our best. And do you get this? Does Mike work on those?
Mike does our contracting for fuel, yes.
Yeah. How's that going so far, Mike?
Not good.
What are you seeing for
Mike.
per gallon price? Yeah, go ahead and pass it over to Mike.
I won't get you. What was the question?
What are you seeing for per gallon price right now?
Oh, boy, I haven't gotten my contract price today, but I did get one yesterday, and I'm not sure. Oh, here it is. For yesterday, for April gas, our contract price was $3.60, not including, tax and delivery charges.
And last year, where were we at?
Oh.
Last year, we were probably right around $2, $2.15.
Yeah.
The year prior, we contracted about this time in March and April, and we contracted gas from $1.40 to $1.80, and diesel was around $1.60 to $1.90 2 years ago.
I think
And we're still using those contracts, which is really good for us right now.
Yeah.
I think we're paying $1.86 for diesel right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Through June.
Through June.
Yeah.
And we've had discussions about how we want to go forward with contracting and
Yeah.
do we want to have shorter duration, longer duration. We might have to refresh that a little bit, Tyler, and think about maybe staggering our durations. But we can have that discussion.
And these tanks won't allow you to store months and months worth of gas or diesel, but what it'll do is allow you to contract to take delivery into your own tanks, which you can contract at the fuel station in town like we discussed a number of months ago, but they can't guarantee you capacity and deliveries and things like they can if you have your own tanks and facilities.
Yeah. Well, I think the world has changed a little bit on us. When we were pumping our own fuel here in the United States, we had a ready supply and we had low prices, free flow of oil at market prices, as Rush Limbaugh used to say. We don't have that anymore. And until that changes, we have to compensate for economic realities. And this is an economic reality. We have to keep our graders, our snowplows, our emergency vehicles. We have to use these things and be able to get them to our public. So I do not have a problem with this. This is a project that's very needed for a county our size and with a fleet our size.
I wish we'd had the capabilities of doing this several years ago. I mean, obviously, the ARPA funds have presented us with some
Opportunities.
opportunities, so I'm in favor of it also. I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, I think the number we were looking at, if the sheriff's office could save 30 cents a gallon, which is what we typically contract under pump price, it is about 30 cents a gallon. That was about $10,000 a year for the sheriff's office. Had we been able to contract a couple of years ago at $1.50 or $2 below what we're paying now, that's big numbers for the sheriff's office. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
there's some
Absolutely.
nice, resiliency benefits to be had, potentially. Not right now, but potentially.
Well, I think it's a wise investment in our future.
Very good. So Tyler, you need a motion on this resolution to initiate this project. Is
So-
there a motion? Yes,
Just
sir.
Tyler actually, we were talking about this the other day when he was putting this together, and he kind of pointed this out, so to him, and just from a cash flow aspect, because Tyler did some looking into trying to see when the next ARPA amount is coming.
Mhm.
So from a cash flow standpoint, we've, again, supported this project, but prior to this, we were actually have committed more than we've actually received from ARPA. And the second payment is
Maybe.
unknown exactly when that's coming. So just to make sure that everybody is aware moving forward of the projects that are approved and that everybody's mindful of what the cash flow is for when that second payment
So-
comes.
The projects don't move until we receive the cash.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're not
I
gonna
just
fund,
felt like,
we're not gonna fund these out of other funds because that wasn't the intent.
right,
Unless we run into a situation where we need to, like they don't pay us.
yeah, that we need to
Of
understand.
course, then we'll readjust.
It was just kind of like, yeah, that's, it's kind of hard to find when they're gonna send that second payment.
Yeah.
And,
There are
just
some
wanted to
dates
maybe
thrown
answer.
out there, how concrete those are, anybody's guess, was, May of
May of this year.
2022, May or
something
June.
like that, so.
So I won't say anything right now,
No.
so I'll be nice.
Yeah, I just thought we needed to all make sure everybody was on the same page for the cash flow.
Yeah, and I did state that in the agenda item,
Yeah.
that was submitted. And, we can definitely look at that. We'll meet with them tomorrow and say, plan on pricing for June tentatively. I don't expect Steve and Chris's projects to incur all their costs between now and then either. Maybe yours, I don't know. But Steve's, I know from a conversation with him, that's not likely.
Right.
So,
So there might be there might be a way to ship those
There-
dollars.
yes.
Yep.
there
Got
might
it.
be. But I just pointed that out. I wanted to make you aware that we're already at 4.1 out of the 3.6 that's already been
Yep.
allocated or something.
Got it. Is there a motion on this resolution?
I make motion to approve resolution 2022-33.
Second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Very good. Tyler, thank you. And we have road department update.
Yep.
Mark, just real quick, I just wanted to thank Tyler for all his work on that. Obviously, we've had conversations back and forth, but appreciate everything that's been done, and him and Brian and everybody in regards to it, Mike, all the contracting side of it. Like he said, it will, in the long run, save us quite a bit of money, so thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate it. Very good. Tyler?
Yeah, so, hopefully the agenda isn't going too long. I don't know what time it is, but
You
quarterly,
you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
that's normal. So, quarterly, I like to give a road department update. Being the largest department in the county, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of challenges in the foreseeable future. I just wanted to give you guys an update on a couple of our major projects, some personnel things, and kind of what the future may or may not look like as a follow-up to some of the discussions we had during budget time. Some things have transpired and changed, and I want to give you an update on that. So if you recall, back in the summer of 2021, I started the employee recognition, and I have 2 employees here today that maybe you're getting blindsided by this a little bit, but like Jason said, Mike McMurray is our road maintenance supervisor, Brian's our second assistant to the engineer, and I rely on these guys a lot for daily operations. So everything I said a few months ago about the crew supervisors, these guys are doing that and more as well. They take all the little pet projects and initiatives that I have and make them a reality. And there's probably a lot, and I really appreciate the work that these guys do. They second guess me, which is good, but they have great ideas. When they start asking questions, that leads to a better product in the end for us as a county and as a department. And Mike, as a road maintenance supervisor, he's probably the most dependable guy I have out there. Because Sheriff's Department calls me at 3 in the morning. I may not see it till 4 in the morning. I call Mike, he's already got it taken care of. It's done. If I wake up in the middle of the night and wonder about snow, he's already out there. It's already done. He's calling the guys in. If there's never a doubt in my mind that the roads will be taken care of when Mike's in charge. He's always got a plan. He's always looking ahead. He puts in numerous hours, and he's extremely dependable and reliable, and is definitely an asset to Marion County. These two have taken on a number of initiatives that have ultimately saved us as a department in the county a lot of money, and provided a higher level of service for the citizens. I think maybe Steve was on board in 2016 when we started with a reorganization. Steve and Mike were kind of the drivers of that, helping me along the way, but ultimately implementation came down to Brian and Mike. How do we make a reorganization work? Brian has to go in and remap all the motor grader routes, redo all the road numbers so we make sure that the appropriate amount of rock is getting to each road. Mike's got to sell this to our crews and to our guys on what the benefits are. He's also very good at gathering input from our employees. When we take on these pet projects of mine, Mike's out there gathering input from the employees, the operators, the mechanics on what equipment to purchase or what way to construct this route to be the most efficient and most beneficial for us. So, rock hauling, reorganization. Just last year, in the winter, we had an auction, and prior to that auction, I wanted to reorganize our parts room. It's been an initiative that we've had maybe a couple of years now, I think. Finally, we set aside time last year to go through our parts room. So this would be over in our shop and in our barn, thousands and thousands of dollars of parts for obsolete equipment or equipment that we no longer have was it stored in our shop. These guys organized that. They contacted Napa, they contacted Caterpillar and Case, returned a lot of that,
Wow.
and we were able to return it for money, which was very beneficial to us. And what we were not able to return, we sold on auction. Thousands and thousands of dollars worth of parts that we can now take that money and put towards new parts, which are costing an astronomical amount right now. So, long story short, I could not do what I do without these two. I do not have to worry about the administrative side of the department running when I'm gone. Brian makes a really good office manager when Tammy's gone, doing payroll and claims, and it's probably the least favorite part of the job.
We knew you had it in you, Brian.
But I really do appreciate the work that these two put in and how reliable and dependable they are. And I know Steve could speak to that as well on that behalf.
No.
I appreciate that, Tyler. Thank you very much. Steve, Keisha, anything you would like to?
Well, I can personally vouch for both of them also. I've worked with both of them for many years, and Tyler is spot on. This county is very lucky to have those two in those positions. I enjoyed working with you both. I hope the feeling was mutual.
Third days. It's not mutual, it's memorable.
No, I appreciate you guys both. Mike, I know that you've taken calls from me too. And I know that, I'm assuming you take a lot of those calls that come your way and regarding the, where's the road crews? Where are they at? So I appreciate that. And Brian, thank you for all your help. I know the questions that I stop out and ask for mapping or whatever it may be. I appreciate you guys and thank you because it makes it seamless on our end. I mean, when you're not fielding all those calls, they're not coming our direction. Your guys' department is already on top of it and handling it. So thank you.
Very good. Gentlemen, thank you for what you do for Marion County. I think it exemplifies the type of people that we have working for us across all of our departments, and you two are great examples of that. So thank you very much for everything you do. Tyler, thank you for continuing to recognize your staff. We
I agree.
appreciate that.
All right, so I have a quick update on projects. We currently have Story Drive Bridge project underway. Man, we've had some really great weather, honestly, for winter work, and the contractor is progressing very good for this time of year. So they currently have all the substructure done, so all the piles are in, all the abutments are poured, the pile casings are poured. They are currently putting up false work to pour the deck. So a couple weeks of that, and then a couple days of tying steel, and we'll be looking for some warmer weather for the bridge deck. So I'd say we're not ahead of schedule, because it had the project not started when it did. They've been able to work every single day, but given the time of year, I'd say we are ahead of schedule. Upcoming, our largest projects would be the G76 project in Attica. We're currently making application with the DOT to provide the detour route for that, because it will be on Highway 5. G28 patching, again, this is going to be fairly impactful. From Highway 14 all the way to Pella, we have $500,000 worth of patches. That's well over 400 concrete patches. That's going to be probably on a good year, a month, 4 or 5 weeks worth of work there of intermittent lane closures, bouncing across G28. So that's going to be fairly impactful. That's a high volume road. Also, it's most likely to be later in the year with our preliminary discussion with the contractor, which means a lot more of the recreational vehicles and out of tourists that aren't as familiar with our area. So I would have liked it to have been done in April or May before the main camping and tourism season, but that's not likely to happen. So we'll be making sure that every precaution is taken by the contractor, ensuring appropriate traffic control and signage and whatnot. We're working with the Knoxville Waterworks on patching on 110. So this is a project that we knew was going to happen post VA demolition. The VA demolition is being hauled out on this route. We had planned to do some patching here. Subsequently, we contacted the Knoxville Waterworks and said, hey, we see a lot of water main breaks out here, and you guys have done a lot of patching yourselves. What's the plan here before we start investing dollars into rehabilitating this road? So they are currently looking at relocating that water main outside of the roadway in the shoulder next year. So we will follow that up with some patching or this coming year, and then follow up that with patching, and then ultimately an overlay of that road. So a good sustainable improvement there for us and for them. So I appreciate the coordination with them. Speaking of the VA, Brian's also been working with numerous utility companies on McKimber. So this would be across the road from the cemetery, the Graceland Cemetery. As you start to go down the hill there, we've had erosion issues for a number of years that I've been battling since I've been county engineer along that road. Since the county is now the owner of that property, we don't have the challenge of dealing with the federal government to get off right away. We would like to regrade that ditch, lay that back slope back, and as part of that, Brian's been coordinating the relocation of a fiber line, and also the power poles will need to be lowered. And so we would like to take advantage of the county owning that property to do some dirt work on the back slope there. So that we don't have the design finalized, but we're kind of waiting on confirmation a little bit from the utilities before proceeding too far. I've been applying for grants every week, trying to find more funding to do projects. We know the funding problems that we may encounter in the near future. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Iowa DOT local systems meeting. So this is county engineers in our region meeting with our representatives at the DOT. And as part of that, the majority of the discussion was around the new infrastructure bill, the IAJA or whatever it's called, or bill. And basically, to summarize, they stated the new funding would be about 50% of what the impacted counties would be about 50% of what we saw in the 2015 fuel tax increase. So we saw $120,000 boost to farm to market, $600,000 to our secondary road fund, so $720,000. So about 50% of that is what we will actually see in dollars. Now, with that being said, Because that's a federal transportation bill, and there is a large influx of funding coming to the state of Iowa in federal transportation dollars, the state takes 60% of those, and the counties receive 30%, counties and cities. Because the state's incurring that 60%, they no longer can match road use tax dollars with federal and swap to the counties. So we previously had a $150 million swap max, or swap cap. That is being reduced to 50 million because the state now has to provide the 20% match for every project they do with these new federal dollars. They don't have enough road use tax to hand down to us because they have to provide for their match. So ultimately, everything we worked for since the fuel tax increase in 2015 was to get swapped projects, which was extremely beneficial for us, is now going away. So we are getting additional funding in the amount of maybe 30% once it gets to us. But with inflation and now the federalization of these projects, the net is zero. So that is the gist of what that meeting was about. There's a lot more to that. There are lots and lots of competitive grant programs out there for road and bridge funding. For example, the county bridge program previously had $2 million. It's going to go to 10. So that is beneficial for counties. They're going to raise the cap from 2 million to 5 million per project. Problem is, we're never even in the top 10. Our bridges aren't bad enough to even get in the top 10 list. So that probably doesn't benefit Marion County to date, as we have to maybe cut projects, delay projects, subsequently neglect and not be as proactive. Will we get a bridge on the list? Maybe. So that's just a quick update on projects. If you have any questions on that? Because I'd like to talk about budget update next.
Questions?
Oh, it's just disheartening.
Yeah, we was pretty happy about the swap when
We were
got
very
into
happy about the
that.
swap.
Well, we don't want you to be happy too long.
Just seems
true.
like there's always that but.
Yep, and we have a $4 to $5 million Flagler Bridge coming up. If we do not let that project prior to June of 23, it's going to have to be federalized, which will make it a $6 million project. So our consultant has been warned, and we've communicated that with them, and we are actually shooting for a March 23 letting right now. So we've got a few months of grace there if things get delayed by the railroad, which they most likely will. But we got that drop dead deadline of June 23 to get that one let. Okay, so let's start with the good news on the budget. So since submitting my budget and presenting it to you, and the concerns that I expressed, I went back to these two, and how can we save money, and maintain status quo. So we got a little bit creative. So Mike and I have been crunching numbers on equipment replacement, and one of the things we had budgeted for next year was the replacement of 2 motor graders. That's in our long-term 15-year plan. We're on track to do that. We budgeted, we have the money, but with uncertainties, was there a way for us to save money? So not that I wanted to buy used equipment, but I wanted to save money or look for potential ways to save money. So we actually found 3 used motor graders for about $100,000 less than the new ones that we were going to purchase with 1,200 hours. That's 1 year worth of runtime. These are older machines. They're all-wheel drives. So there's a little more resale on the back end. They have wings, which is more beneficial for us and potentially for resale. Long story short, rather than buying 2 new used motor graders that we would keep for 7 years under warranty, I am looking at purchasing 3 used and trading 1, and the net result there is $30,000 under my budget for the 2 new. So I can purchase 3 used machines, including an additional 5 years worth of warranty on those, for $620,000, 26, and I had budgeted 660 for the two new. So what that does in the short term, so in the next 2 to 3 years, that's about $320,000 worth of savings. Because we were gonna buy two new now, and then next year, that third one would have to be replaced. So in the short term, there's about $320,000 worth of savings. In the long term, I'm going out 2 replacement cycles for these. We would be at a minimum $150,000 savings in the 6 to 7 year period. Now, could it be more than that? Yes, we just don't know. We're gonna be trading them at about the same hours. We're gonna run about a year, year and a half of risk being out of warranty with these machines. But with the savings, I think we can take that risk.
That's what I was gonna ask you, you know, that $100,000 that, you know, originally purchasing the 2 new ones versus, you know, what's that cost when you get down that, you know, 5-year mark, you know, how much money are you incurring? I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Steve, but.
It's kind of hard, it's kind of hard to put a number on that. I mean,
It is, but we currently own 8 of those machines, in that year model. What we have seen is the issues typically come up between 2,500 and 5,000 hours under warranty. We would still have that warranty.
Okay.
On the new machines, we'd be buying 7 years, 7,500 hours. So now we're gonna buy machines that are already 7 years old, but they're letting us extend a 5-year, 5,000 hour warranty on them. So we're gonna get to about 6,200, 6,500 hours on them. So we're not that far off. Our thought is some of the issues we have seen will still be covered under warranty in that typical 2,000 to 5,000 hour range.
But your trade-in value at the end, how do you feel about that?
It's less. That's why that savings goes from 320 to 150.
Yeah, okay.
It's less, but it's
Save money
not.
on the front end, but you're gonna give it up on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're gonna have some exposure on your warranty side.
Yes. But in the short, you know, it doesn't save me a ton of money in this year's budget, but as I stated in my budget meeting,
Yep.
we've got the cash on hand to proceed status quo with inflation.
Right.
But what it does is it helps me in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
It helps.
Because you get 3 for
Because-
2.
And that's where the uncertainty really
Right.
is. Correct.
Okay.
I mean, you need the number of machines as much as you need the brand new machines.
Yeah.
So,
And the other thing is new machines are anywhere from 8, if we were John Deere, 8 to 10 months out, a Cat's 12 to 14, maybe even longer now. These machines are available today. Caterpillar's willing to work with us. Potentially a down payment. They are currently out on a lease, wouldn't be back till April anyway. By the time they arrange delivery, he's like, we may be looking at May anyway, and by the time I get them invoiced, it might be July. So he's like, we'll make it work.
no, I think it makes sense, Tyler.
Okay.
To do that.
We'll work that out, Jake.
Absolutely.
Just write the check.
So, we've talked to the operators, we've talked to the mechanics, I think everybody's on board here. You know, they all understand the issues that we're facing. And I have a dead motor grader right now, so 12-month lead time that's another winter without a motor grader, so.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Mike is getting ready to contract salt here, in the next few weeks probably. We probably won't hardly contract any salt next year, which is huge savings for us. So $30,000 in this year's budget is our estimated savings, and $70,000 next year. $70,000 of $130,000 salt budget for next year. So, and that's
Just haven't used very much.
basically, we're gonna fill our sheds under our current contract, still save money under this year's budget. Have to buy no preseason salt next year because our sheds will be full, correct? And we will only contract in-season salt. So to start the year, we'll be in the same place, going into winter, and we'll contract the same amount of in-season, which is pretty normal for us, so. About $100,000 here, so thankful.
Good news.
Unless March gets really bad on us here. We also have a vacancy on our bridge and pavement crew. Currently, I am waiting about till the summer to fill that position, if we fill it then. We're just gonna kind of see what the economy is doing, what the job pool looks like. But right now, we're just kind of holding on to that. Our workload this year is conducive to that for now. Just because of some reservations I have with budget and whatnot, we're just gonna wait a little bit here. Do we need that employee long-term? Yes, I believe so. We justified that employee. But right now, we're just gonna wait a little bit. Okay, so now, following up on the budget as a whole, moving forward, I can send this to you to get the details, so I'll just hit the high points here. I discussed 3 years ago tiered cuts that our department could make if times got very tough for us. Right now, again, we are not there. We have cash on hand to cover. We're absorbing inflation with the cash on hand and maintaining status quo in our operations. Just want to make that clear again. If that's not going to be sustainable in the future, if inflation trends continue, which I hope they do not, if revenues continue, this is not sustainable. And this is why we talked about it 3 years ago. So tier 1 cuts. So I'm calling this the proactive improvement and replacement cuts. So we're no longer doing proactive improvements to our secondary roads. We're in more of a maintenance mode. That's about a 15% reduction in our overall expense budget. So results in about $1.2 million worth of cuts initially. So basically, gains or steps forward that we were taking, stop.
Let's make sure everybody's clear, especially with the meeting room. We're not taking these cuts. We're planning for the eventual, or the possibility if the economy changes.
Correct.
Right.
We are not making cuts.
Right. So go ahead.
Tier 2 would be then completely maintenance only. So nothing proactive, no improvements of any kind. In total, with the tier 1 and tier 2 cuts, we'd be looking at about a 26% expense reduction in our budget. So an additional $950,000, so close to $2 million worth of overall cuts. This would get us back to pre-2015 fuel tax increase levels for equipment, for maintenance projects, for construction projects. I want to back up a little bit. In tier 1, roads and bridges may close as a result of that.
That was gonna be my question.
In tier 2, roads and bridges will likely close because we would not have capacity to maintain or improve to keep them open. That could include culvert failures, bridges, possibly even roads that get neglected at some point. Tier 3 would be a complete and county-wide level of service reduction. This is a tier we do not want to get to. So overall, this would result in 35% expense reduction. So an additional $750,000. Roads and bridges will close. Roads will be neglected. Vacancies will not be filled, through attrition, retirements. That's also a potential in tier 1 and 2. Mike and I kind of discussed practically what could we do to cut from our status quo rock budget for rocking roads. If we cut 60% of the maintenance rock, so let me rephrase that, 60% of the roads and cut their rock by 50%. That would save us about $500,000 right there. So this would be taking basically our roads that we currently rock every other year. So these are low volume roads. And then the roads that we rock once a year that are less than 100 vehicles a day is the next year. So any road less than 100 vehicles a day. What this does is provides the most bang for the buck to reduce costs, but we don't reduce the level of service on the main routes. So if your farm to markets and your high volume roads, so then people aren't having to drive 3 miles of crap unofficial term. 3 miles of neglected road to get to a pavement. And you have a main thoroughfare leading into an area, Carpenter Street, Quebec, maybe it's a mile. So in total, that's $2.85 million and 35% expense reduction potential. Do we want to get there? Absolutely not. I think we are on a really good trajectory and have been since 2015. And we want to maintain that, obviously. But this, if the demand for cuts is there, this is a practical approach that Mike and I kind of discussed on how we could reduce costs. On our normal maintenance operations and construction projects essentially go back to the budget levels of pre-2015. And a good example is there, we spend close to $1.5 million on proactive maintenance and improvements right now. Going back to 2015 levels is like $250,000 a year instead of 1.5 million. And then tier 4 is staffing reductions and subsequent level of service reduction. That's about the only thing that's left at that point.
Tyler, with the tier 1 and 2, give me the total dollar amount.
Together?
Yeah.
2.1 million.
Got it. Okay.
So that was just follow up on our discussion that we had. I wanted to formalize those numbers again for you that I gave 3 years ago. That's an ugly outlook that we do not want to see.
Right. No, I appreciate you.
And we are not doing that right now. Just to clarify again.
Right.
Right. But I appreciate you even, looking at this, because that shows, you're an excellent manager and you're looking and saying, okay, I have a plan. We never want to get to this plan, especially these, tiers. But I appreciate your willingness to at least look at it.
Well,
yeah, unfortunately, Mike or Brian or Scott or Jay come to me and say, we've got a large diameter culvert that just washed out in that last rain. Sorry, we may not be able to do it. Throw the barricades up.
yeah, I think taking this in a little different direction, Tyler, it's incumbent upon this board to be thinking about these possibilities and how to avoid these situations if the economy continues to have pressure put upon it. We're watching oil at not record prices, but closing in on those prices that we've seen in the past. Will that get resolved? Don't know. But the combination of that, increased wages, those things, historically, that never bodes well for an overall economy. So we need to have, as from this board standpoint, working with Tyler, a plan that we can execute upon, because the numbers don't mean anything without a plan. So we'll be spending some time, Tyler, to talk about that.
And to some extent, we may have to do some tier 1 cuts next year. In the next 6 months, we may know, okay, we're status quo isn't sustainable.
Well, just remember, it's not static. I mean, you get the road department, and I appreciate the work you guys did, but again, the board's responsibility in part is to ensure we have essential functions working in this county as long as possible in an economically stressful situation. So we will look to find ways to fill those dollars, because we got to have functioning roads. So we will talk about, I think a corollary to an analysis like this is, what are the contingencies to fill tier 1 and 2, and can you do it under existing budget constraints?
Any questions on that? Anything else?
Well, thank you. I'll be following up with you on that one, Tyler.
One more item. This is a hard one too. Junction 92 update and progression here. We currently have the owner-architect agreement ready to sign. So far, they've been doing work on good faith as we work through some changes with council on owner-architect agreement. We now have that ready to sign. I have it here with me. And later this month, they've stated we'll have a preliminary code review, floor plan review. So they've submitted our preliminary floor plan for the main shop to the state for state code review. There are many sections of state code that apply to a governmental building of this size. We do not have building codes in the county. The default here is the state because of its size. So we will have that review later this month. The architect has enrolled us in the commercial new construction program with Mid-American Energy, which may yield savings for us either up front in the type of equipment that we use for HVAC and whatnot in our building, but then long-term potential savings as a result of the efficiencies that they see in our building, or can consider that we can consider. I looked at grant opportunities because of funding possibility, lack of funding to cover inflation. So I was looking at different grant opportunities, primarily the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Grant. Long story short, we are most likely eligible for that. We're on the cusp because of our median rural household income. The amount would be fairly minimal when you talk about a multi-million-dollar project. We're talking about a few $100,000 potentially. Talking through this with the architect who has done a few of these, he does not recommend we make application because USDA is federal dollars and it will federalize our entire project. So the juice isn't worth the squeeze here. And this one is his recommendation, not to proceed with an application. So kind of struck out there. I guess the only thing to update on since our last meeting was the septic quote has been received. What was it, about double? It was still under budget. I budgeted inflation, but somehow it was double what I actually expected it to be. Appraisals have been done for the road department facilities. We did ask the appraiser to proceed with
Sixth Street.
Sixth Street Annex. We do not have that one back yet, though.
I told him to send it to you.
And it's going to Chris. So somehow Pella went down from the last appraisal, which was done in 2016. So our Pella shop went down. Clay shop actually went up. Net result, net zero. So we're at the same
That seems
point.
odd, but
So we can look at those, no major gains there in helping fund the project because it's a net zero essentially. I think some of the justification there was the age and condition of our building in Pella. And then the land value of the clay shop was the driver for the increase. And I'm taking this from Brian. I have not actually read through them myself.
So land values in Pella didn't increase?
Well, that's kind of a
But
question.
the market is different in the inside the city limits of Pella, and the older building is more of a deterrent in the corporate limits than it was out in the rural area.
Okay. Amazing.
So no major gains there to help us. So I want to talk about the budget a little bit for the Junction 92 shop. We obviously these two and myself have really been struggling with this. And inflation, it's just bad news every time we turn around regarding inflation, especially on vertical infrastructure. And I don't know Chris's recent experiences, but I'm sure he can attest to some of that. So currently our budget has $100,000 for utilities. 400 for building accessories. Building accessories would be things like air compressor, power washers for the wash bay, vehicle lift for servicing and maintenance of vehicles, an overhead crane, and bulk oil. We're not talking about a whole lot there. All necessary in a building, some of which we do not have now. But the benefits there are vastly greater than our work comp, for our work comp exposure that we have today. Specifically the crane and the lift would be a huge asset to us from that perspective. We have 4.5 or 5.4 for the main shop now, 300 for salt sheds, 200 for exterior concrete, 175 for a cold storage building. Modifications to some of the existing buildings to make them meet the needs of the new site and its layout. Ultimately, $700,000 for engineer's office. I can provide this to you. In total, we're at 7.5 million. As the building square foot cost continues to rise, it's eating into the contingency that I had already pre-bid, unfortunately. So we really banged our heads trying to figure out how do we cut costs? How could we cut costs? And by cutting costs, we're pretty lean already, I feel like. I don't feel like anything in our building design is out of the ordinary and there's really nothing that isn't necessary for us to complete our normal operations in this mechanic shop and maintenance garage. So we're fairly lean as far as the main shop. Around the site, there's some potential to delay costs. Ultimately, we want to do all of the things here to consolidate our facilities and to be the most efficient that we can be as a department. So we could delay the engineer's office. Obviously, that's the easy one. It's a separate building. It's $700,000 out of the budget. But what does that mean for you guys on any of these costs? $700 for the engineer's office. We could maybe reduce the exterior concrete by $100,000, and we could maybe reduce the salt shed thing by $100,000. So we're talking less than $1 million, all of which I had budgeted from secondary roads. None of those items were from lost or funds that I had presented to you from board controlled funding sources. So chopping bays off the building is definitely not something that we want to entertain. We don't really see how that gains us a lot anyway, because I made this list to show you that utilities, building accessories, salt shed, if we don't have an additional salt shed out there, we can't move people there. We have to have that. If we build the main shop, it's got to have a salt shed for the additional capacity that we're losing at the other facilities. We have to have all the utilities if we build anything out there. The building accessories, I mean, a lot of these are integral with the building. If you don't do them now, you're not going to do them, or you're going to cobble something together in a brand new building at a future date.
Right.
And we know the safety implications that they have for us. Cold storage, again, we have to have that. But we're moving items from 3 different locations here, and we have to have under roof storage for some of this stuff. Some of it can't be in the sun. Some of it is just under roof storage. But again, we're talking about $175,000 for a cold storage, for a pole barn to get things under roof.
Right.
We're not talking big dollars. So how do we fund the project? Right now, as presented to you previously, we were looking at about thirds. Secondary road fund, lost. So $2 million for secondary roads for the main shop, $2 million from lost, and potentially $2 million from the general fund, which was the original proposal. I threw $2 million out for ARPA as a potential funding source. If we had the capacity within the road department for the $2 million in a couple of years, the contingency would, in my opinion, would be the general fund. If we're simply looking at cash on hand and funds that are currently available, we're basically going to use up all the lost balance at that point. We basically use up the secondary road fund balance at that point. We'd use up what would be remaining in ARPA. So the contingency here was now the general fund for inflation. If we simply consider building and construction cost inflation for the project. Now, if we start talking about the things I just talked about in our secondary road budget, the $2 million that we have set aside in a future budget for the new facility may not be there.
Right.
Now we're talking about inflation of the construction project itself, plus offsetting lost revenue or fund balance as a result of
Right.
secondary roads normal operations. So I'm not sure how comfortable you guys would be absorbing all of that in the general fund or from elsewhere. So I reached out. So I mean, we looked for any way we could cut, and really, in the end, it's not going to amount to much.
Yeah.
To do a basic building, the bulk of that cost is going to be incurred. Is it a large building? Yes. But it doesn't really benefit our operations in any way to not do the building in its entirety. I mean, if you want details on that, we can surely go into that. So I did, everybody hates this term, but bonding is an option. So Jake gave me Mike Maloney's contact information. I'm not going to get into the details, but there are some options there. Other county secondary road departments have bonded against local option sales tax. So this is what they call a revenue bond.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically, correct me if I'm wrong, bonding against the future receipts into that, which bears some risk, right, Jake? Because of, because it's not a bond who has a separate levy.
Yeah.
You're bonding against projections, and right now we don't have a form resolution for the extension of Pella's local option sales tax at this time, right?
Correct. Yes, they do.
Geo bonds, there could be potential there as well. And then the other option he gave here was road use tax revenue bonds.
Which is same. Bonding against future road taxes, which we don't know what's going to happen with that either.
So, at first glance to me, local option sales tax seems maybe the easiest and the most practical.
Bonding against that?
We have again, the projections are just that, projections. But if we typically receive 800 and we bond for, structure a bond to be a percentage of that project allocation.
So I'm going to take a step back, Tyler, because this is a lot to think about in an update. And I would want something more, we need something more robust to have a discussion on this. Previous discussion with the economy moving at least directionally the way that it is. You just outlined 4 scenarios of potential stress on current operations, right? All of which require some level of funding to cover those operations. Again, thinking if things get more serious than they are right now. At the same time, we're thinking about a building for the road department requiring several $1 million of outlays. And however that funding is structured, ARPA, board, bonds, whatever that structure takes, however that takes form, we're still dealing with that same economic uncertainty. We've got an inflation rate, GDP, month over month. Let's just take that. When they look at it from December of last year to January of this year, we went from 7% to essentially 0. Okay? And now when they get into February's numbers, they're going to find some of the same things. As we get into March, it's going to look worse. And April's going to look worse. You can't replace $1.3 trillion that was given last year. That's an uncomparable comp. It's not possible. So we're going to be under some comparative stress in the economy. What I'm saying is this: I would like this to be done, I think, in a more robust way. Talk about our options, not just on the building side, but holistically. we've got these issues, we've got the building, because my question ultimately comes down to, do we do the building?
Right. And that's fine.
Is the not the economics of necessarily the construction, but the macroeconomic picture doesn't seem to be favorable right now for that. Does it mean we won't do it? No, I think at some point we develop plans and execute on plans when pricing is in our favor. You don't build as you watch inflation go from 3 to 5 to 7, and you can't control that lever. It's going to eat a hole in your pocket, right? I think we need to think about both of these together and
No,
see
I
what
don't
our
disagree.
funding
I
options
mean,
are.
that's my struggle.
Bonding,
I-
I will tell you, bonding on future revenues for sales tax or revenues tax, not in favor of that at all. Because if you've got economic stress on you, imagine what we've got economic stress on sales. So we throw out a projection, we think we're gonna be at X, and I know everybody wants to think rosy projections, but all we gotta do is look at what happened to the market yesterday with 80% of the market's long and the Dow goes down 800 points. So they got crushed yesterday. So we can't think just it's all gonna fix itself, not at 150 barrel oil. No, it's not gonna happen.
Tyler, I have a question for you. In regarding your current buildings, like Pella's, I mean, is there things that you can, I mean, when you look at the building itself, I know it needs some improvements. But I mean, how much money are you looking at to try to make it functional for another 2 or 3, 4 years?
Together $1 million, just to get, I mean, to be honest, we've been neglecting the buildings. With
Right.
intent of a new,
Would that be
just
Pella,
closing them.
Clay,
And central shop.
Central Shop?
So we had this discussion, we're estimating, upwards of $1 million, easily $500,000. Pella's in terrible shape, to be honest. It needs a lot of work.
What,
Central shop, Clay, there's a lot that could be done there. For the efficiency side of that building, which we did at Franklin, we made that building much more efficient as far as heating and cooling it. There's only so much we can do at Central.
well, I was just,
Improve the
and I
safety
know
there.
we've talked about this a little bit. I don't know that I've said anything in public, but like 6th Street, we've talked about temporarily, if that was a place that you guys, instead of doing something in the whole barn aspect, if your facilities would move there, keep your other operations, your maintenance side of things. But for office space at 6th Street, that could be, maybe a possibility.
Yeah, I think this is what I'd like to do, what I'd like to propose, Tyler. A lot of numbers, a lot of issues to juggle. I think this needs to be almost a separate discussion that we have as a board, where we look at the numbers, we see the numbers, we can look at options.
And weigh on them, yeah.
So
I mean,
Look on
are
the
there
review.
contingencies? It's not something I'm gonna sit and, as I wrote down some things on a piece of paper and go, well, yeah, I think you should just adjust this, change this, and turn that dial there. It's not gonna happen. And then we get to the point of what really concerns me when we're talking about alternate funding sources, because I need to get those numbers in my head and I don't have them. And are those even viable options, considering what we've already done to support development in Marion County? We gotta get that holistic picture. And then we can start to say directionally, yeah, this probably makes more sense than this does, whatever that is. But I don't think we can do that right now.
No, I understand. I'm just giving you an update that we're struggling with.
You're working on it, and I appreciate it, but I would like,
And it's not,
I would like to sit down and put this into some kind of financial analysis that we can actually digest and make some adjustments to if we need to. And make a decision, do you even do it or not?
Weighing our
Is it
our
just, is it
options,
just a
yeah.
project that you delay?
But I do appreciate the
And
update. It at least gives us a heads up that, what your numbers kind of looking like.
and I understand your concerns with a revenue bond. At first glance, my thought is with cash on hand and ARPA and lost alone, we could fund $4 million of the project, borrowing against a third of the projected revenue would be a 10-year revenue bond, roughly.
Yes.
Payment. So a third of the projected lost revenue would be a 10-year payoff for that additional 3.5 million. With
a rising interest
with
rate
the
environment.
yeah, and I think Jake's concern with the revenue bond is there's more risk there, obviously, because of what you just stated. So the interest rates aren't as favorable as a GO. Then the general fund is there for the ultimate contingency, or the bond itself, either or. Which isn't as impactful that way as, let's just bond for the project and.
No, right.
And you're borrowing against the operating expenses like you stated, so.
Right. So, no, I appreciate the update. Yeah, so I'm gonna carve out some time. Let's talk a little bit on how to put this into a financial presentation, what we need to think about as you folks are working on this project. Because the question in my mind, Tyler, and I'm looking again, very high level, previous discussion, and this one, do you even do it? Yeah, are we dealing with such rapidly rising costs that we can't really accurately project final outcomes? Which means, how do you bond?
We absolutely are.
And then if you look at increasing inflationary pressures on us, well, if you're looking at 4-year, 3-year contingencies, 4-year, 7-year contingencies, you're gonna see that also hit growth. Growth is already declining nationally. So what does that mean locally? So you may think you're going to hit X, but it's really Y. And we banked on X. So we need to put this into something a little more formal. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, Tyler?
No, thank you.
All right, you gave me a lot to think about. Thank you. Is there a motion to close discussion on this item?
Make motion to close discussion.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye. VA update, Mr. Nestaby.
Weird. I'll walk in front of you. I'm out of my element back there. Things are progressing well. Thought you left that for me. So where we're at right now, we'll begin abatement of 75 and 77 tomorrow. That starts with REW out of Des Moines. So you understand what buildings those are. That's the boiler plant and chiller plant. Abatement will begin. 74 is almost gone. Most of the debris is being cleared up. I mean, huge piles of wood chips from tub grinding are being hauled off. Next week, we'll actually start potentially grinding the sub base. So that's the concrete pile that's it's basically sitting in the middle 40. That'll actually be ground down next week. So Tyler will have a ready supply. That's 6,000 tons that we talked about earlier during budgeting and during contract. So yeah, things are going well. We discovered another 450 feet of tunnel that never led to anywhere, and it's full of asbestos this week, so that's exciting. But they just seem to be popping up just about everywhere. Literally not connected to any building at all. It was just kind of floating out there. So there you go.
All right. Any ideas when to move across the street?
Again, with us adding 75 and 77 for demo, I'm guessing they're probably going to wait and clean up all of the north side prior to moving south.
Right, south, okay.
This time of year, with some of the temperatures we've had, snow, ice, and road department understands this. It's not always easy on equipment. So with, especially out there where they have no power, they have nothing to plug in block heaters. It's one of those deals where they were kind of running at about 60% capacity on staff right now. So I couldn't give you a time frame at this point. Depends on how fast 75 and 77 come down and if we quit finding tunnels that no one knew about.
No, that's fair. I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. Board, any questions for Chris on this item?
Thank you, Chris.
No, thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Updates. Mr. McCombs.
The only thing I have a landfill meeting tomorrow. I think that's about it other than, I don't want it to snow again Thursday.
I hear you.
There you go.
I hear you. Yeah, this is John.
No, I don't have anything at this time.
All right, I have nothing either, or nothing else to add. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make motion to adjourn.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you.